Okay. Just 1 second. Here we go. Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk number 353, streaming live today and recording Wednesday the 9th of April 2014. It's excellent, just the perfect time for somebody to ring me up. I'll just switch that. I usually... Hey, you could tell it's live, can't you? And that's the one I forgot, and it was hidden under a piece of paper, so I couldn't find it. Right, so let's just say welcome, everybody. Another week in the Sonosphere, or whatever we want to call it. We've got a fulsome chat room. I want to welcome everybody there, and also anybody who's coming through the new sort of window we've put onto the podcast when it's streamed live. It now just the player becomes live on the front page of Sonic State. So. Please enjoy us, and remember, if you're here and you like what you're seeing, or you think you might by the time you've had a chance to think about it, press a subscribe button somewhere. There should be one down here or up here, depending on where you're watching it, and we will very much appreciate your subscription. Thank you very much. Right, so without further ado, I've got to go. Well, actually, I'll say hello to my first guests first, and then we'll come back because we've got a very special guest we haven't had for a long time on the show, and it's great to have him back in the form of PJ Tracy. But first, I'm going to say hello to Gaz Williams, GazWilliams.me, music technologist, bass player, and co-presenter of Sonic Touch. How you doing, Gaz?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, excited to have PJ back on the show. It's been a long time.
It has, yeah. We've missed him. So anyway, we'll move swiftly on. Also, we've got Dave Spears, GeForceSoftware.com in his, as we've said, his treasure trove of synthesizers there, wherever he is, in deepest, darkest part of the country. I think I likened you to the Ebenezer of synthesis, and that's not in the sort of Scroogey way. It was more in the kind of hoarding, collecting way.
Well, yeah, but everything gets used. So, and I've got the CS8. The CS8 is working again. So
I'm so glad to hear that. Today. I'm so glad to hear it. And you'll be pleased to see, Dave, I've moved the your lower third across so that we can see the chat room and your coordinates, and you can split your face however you like it, depending on how you prefer it. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, Dave. Dave, of course, GeForce Software makers of fine software instruments. And number 3, the less hirsute Rich Hilton than last week. Rich has had a trim for spring. How are you, Rich?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. Rich, of course, keyboard player for Chic and Nile Rodgers studio guy. One of the busiest guys, and as I've said, every time you see a festival poster for pretty much everywhere in the world, Chic are playing. So busy. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, Rich. Always appreciated.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, PJ Tracy. Long-time viewers of the podcast or listeners of the podcast will remember PJ. PJ's been on the show, well, almost since the early days. In fact, probably you sort of ducked out just after we started doing video, and where I think, your workload just meant you couldn't join us. So now you're here. PJ Tracy is actually, let me get this right, fantastic pianist, and also, I guess, media composer for TV, advertising, movies, games, more recently. In fact, that's how we kind of hooked up again. PJ just got featured in Time magazine, where he very kindly gave us a name check. There it is. I'm going to show you where the name check is even. It's even, yeah, look there. It's even on paragraph 2 with a link, Sonic State Pro Audio Podcast. PJ, it's a pleasure to have you back. How the hell are you?
Nick, I'm very well, and it's great to be here. Great to be here. It's been way too long.
Oops.
What just happened there?
That's it. It's fallen out.
Yeah.
I think you're going to need a stand for your iPad.
I think you're right. I'm currently resting it on my knee.
Okay.
but I'll move my my digits so that it does not obscure the wonderful HDness of this.
It is, yeah. Well, since you've been gone, sounds like the opening of a song, doesn't it? Dun dun, like Rainbow, I believe. We've gone all HD, and everybody's got their own Skype machines. I see you're ensconced in your own studio now, right? So last time we saw you, it was kind of still under construction. It's looking very much not under construction anymore.
Yeah, we're still in a transformative period, but we've done quite a bit of construction over the last year. Installed this lovely diffuser above me. Let's see if I can.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Is that a real Traps?
It is not. It is hand built by my business partner's brother, who happens to be kind of a bit of a construction genius. So he made that.
Very handy.
And then refabric the wall underneath it, and yeah, it's added much to the room. So I thoroughly enjoy working in this room now, and have made it my own, and it's a joy.
Excellent. So, PJ, what have you been up to? I mean, we saw there that you got featured. I mean, featured in Time magazine. Okay, the journalist who wrote it did confess to being a long-term friend of yours, which always helps. But hell, what's that bit? What's that all about?
Well, recently I attended GDC, which is outlined in that article, and I am a member of the Game Audio Network Guild on the apprentice level, which means that as of yet, although that may be imminently about to change, I've done no professional work within the video game industry. But I'm a member of their guild. Their Emmy Awards essentially are held during GDC, the Game Developers Conference, every year in San Francisco. I went out there to make some relationships with people, and they honored me with the Apprentice Award, which was basically a blind contest where they presented a fictional brief, and I think about 200 of us submitted to that brief, and then 20 were nominated, and then the guild members voted on those 20, and mine was picked as the winner. And
Nice.
They honored me with the award at the ceremony, and I was thoroughly unprepared to get up and address that eminent crowd, but I hopefully didn't make too much of a fool of myself.
I'm sure you
There's
didn't.
apparently video on the way, so we'll see.
Have you got a tux on?
No, I was wearing a suit.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, so it was a fantastic fantastic experience, and as a result of that, my friend who writes for Time magazine and who writes specifically for technology and video games had, not to my knowledge, asked his editor if I won that award, because he knew I was nominated for it, if he could write about GDC in the context of me winning that award.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. Time magazine, I don't think there really is an equivalent in the UK. I can't even think of one, because it's such a sort of big national sort of thing, because it's a glossy. I can't think of what the equivalent would be UK-wise, but way to go.
Thank you.
So, well, congratulations anyway. So let's hop straight in with some topics then, shall we? Let me see. Now, what do we start with? Oh, I should also say, before I start, iZotope, who are sponsoring the show, are also going to be giving away a copy of RX this month. And what you got to do is listen out for a magic phrase, which I will say later in the show, and say what it is, and then you'll have to tweet it. There'll be instructions there, but I guess that's a really sneaky way of making sure you have to listen to all of the podcasts, otherwise you might miss it. But hey, it wasn't my idea. It was their marketing genius that came up with that, and I'd like to say Kim, who's in NAB with iZotope at the moment, and then off on holiday. That seems like a good fun idea, so stay tuned. You can win a copy of RX3. Right. The first thing really for this, and I know this was a sort of late addition, was the news that Windows 8.1 is starting to be embedded. There are some prototypes being shown, and I've got a little bit of video from the recent Microsoft Build conference in San Francisco. I think it was last week. Where there's, I think it's Mr. Guggenheim is, yeah.
And we've open sourced
I'll play
as
you
well,
some.
so other people can work on it. So we're going to continue to invest in this area and make sure for folks working in the embedded side.
It's funny because this guy can't wait to start playing the MPC. That's the MPC you see there. And he starts playing it, and this guy gets really annoyed.
As well. So John.
Yeah, there we go.
So a kind new mark. This is an example of sort of a very modern. We could do this all day. A very front-end side to the embedded space. These are musical instruments. Skrillex uses these. Dr. Dre, and so Dr. Shu as well takes advantage of these. And this is the other end of the embedded space. And another area in terms of working with developers, there's a lot of opportunity. This is not something you might generally think about as a Windows device. Yesterday, Terry had the piano, so keeping with the Windows theme.
But there was not only that. That was a kind of a version of Akai's MPC. There was also a Newmark DJ thing. But this is a sneak peek. We have an insider who gave us a little bit of extra information about this, and he was telling me what that essentially was. Essentially, that's Windows Embedded Industry. It's like an embedded version for the embedded device, 8.1 on a full embedded Core i5 PC in the box, which is an Intel NUC. I don't know what NUC stands for. Someone else might know. It's got, and that'll support touchscreen, Ethernet ports, USB ports, and it's going to be available at the end of this year. Software that they showed on the stage is not the final version there, obviously, and also the same with the NX7. But this kind of brings up, because I know Corey Banks, who's a sometimes guest on the show, was getting quite excited about this, because this brings up the concept of the possibility of all of these type devices like the MPC Renaissance and controllers actually having an embedded operating system and platform running on them. So there's essentially, they're not tethered to the computer, they are the computer. Rich, you're looking like you've got a sort of, you're holding your hands up with a sort of some form of glee there. Or are we already there?
I don't know if it's, this is a combination of inevitable and has been done before. Does anybody remember the Nico?
Sure, yeah. But that was a more general environment, wasn't it, rather than a specific one trick?
But it was a host for a basic Windows operating system.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken,
was that
it may have been Linux, but I think it was. Yeah. I think it was PC based. I think it was Windows based.
Was that the Open Labs thing?
Yeah, I believe so. Okay. They're in Texas. I think the product was called Nico, and it looked like a keyboard with a big window, a bunch of faders on it, and it's not that this isn't exciting on some level. It's just that it's all very much just what you would expect. Well, in other words, and the funny thing is, we've gone away from hardware-based instruments where everything is self-contained into sort of your machine tractor paradigm, where you've got these fancy controllers that interact in very deep ways with very specific pieces of software. And now we're going back to putting those pieces of software back into the instrument and running them under the same operating system that would have been running in the computer a second ago, in the analogy. So it's just all very interesting to me, but none of it's terribly surprising.
I guess not. I mean, I suppose the thing is, it's like a kind of second attempt, isn't it? Because the Open Lab stuff, like was being mentioned in the chat room, some of it was like the size of a house, and it was more multi-purpose. So essentially, we ended up with multiple operating applications on it, whereas something like this, which would just presumably run the MPC version of the plugin or whatever it may be, some kind of, because obviously this is all very proprietary. And essentially, I suppose that's what we've been getting with instruments anyway. PJ,
right? Yeah. One could argue that you're using a jackhammer to drive a thumbtack, though.
Maybe so. It depends. I think it depends. I mean, it's only an i5, and it depends on the resources available to it, I guess, and what it would need. I mean, there's no harm in it having plenty of headroom, at least. Anyway, then at least it becomes, hardware. The hardware becomes less obsolete so quickly. Perhaps, I don't know. PJ, does it thrill you?
Well, I guess to add to what Rich and you were just discussing, if the operating system is simply there to run one piece of bespoke software, then maybe the more interesting aspect of this is how will it be networkable, or what will the protocol be that it can, that it connects to other devices? Will it simply be MIDI, or will there be some way to have these devices interconnect in more interesting ways than we've seen in the past, or more robust ways than we've seen in the past? Because the Open Labs model, to me, was always an interesting one, if not, too bespoke or too cumbersome to be of value to me personally. But it looked like a great idea to have, essentially a controller and a PC all in one situation. So this situation, like Rich said, I think has been a long time coming. I'm surprised it hasn't happened sooner, and it'll be just interesting to see the way in which these devices communicate.
Well, I think one interesting thing about this is obviously Microsoft have also been pushing the concept of embedding core MIDI and whatever, and maybe RTP MIDI, or I don't know, stuff into the Windows at an OS layer as well for further iterations. So that will become much more of an integrated thing. Dave, do you find this interesting at all? Because I mean, obviously, as a software developer, it'd be great if you could just bung it on a generic piece of hardware, wouldn't it? Surely, or is it just yet another port that you don't want to have to do?
No, it should be relatively straightforward. I think it's quite interesting. Like everybody said, it's been a long time coming. I used the Open Labs thing. In fact, we supplied some stuff for Open Labs, and it was really good. But it was very, very cumbersome. And
it was early touchscreen technology, wasn't it? Very early. So.
Yeah, and I think wasn't it XP based?
It would have been, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how this develops.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's the one thing that is clear is, I mean, okay, Microsoft aren't really known for their music applications, and that the support of the creative side. It's much more traditionally come from a sort of office, commerce, business. Generally speaking, even though obviously there's lots and lots of software that runs on Windows. All of the major DAWs do and what have you. So it's not so much of an issue there. It's more a question of, there's been less of OS level hooks. All these other layers have been written by other people that sit on top of it, and all this other stuff that may be coming in is a much more interesting notion. And I think that's perhaps something that, because Apple don't do any embedded stuff. In fact, Apple are kind of going in the opposite direction by making their stuff even more difficult to kind of qualify to put on their hardware. I don't know, what do you think, Gaz?
Yeah, I've got lots of opinions on this, so I'll try and keep it brief. I think what's excellent is that it's going to be much better for live use. Anyone who's used laptops live know that it's just not a robust, just the shape of it's just too delicate. So to have nice physical, fit for purpose, like the MPC is a perfect example of that. When you're going into clubs and stuff, that's a really very tempting thing, and presumably you'd have that with an SSD drive in there, so no moving parts, really rock solid. Which makes it a very, very appealing thing. Now, I know
more
certainly
from...
though,
I guess, surely. It's going to add to the price, I'd imagine, but maybe they use flash drives instead.
Yeah, I mean, SSD drives, how big an SSD drive would you need in something like that's going to be dedicated to, say, being like an MPC? Obviously, the more the better, but... like the machine, take for instance Machine. What the Machine library I think is around 6 gigabytes, and then if you expand that with all the expansion packs, you might be looking at 20-30 gigabytes or whatever. So it's not going to be an enormous expense. You can get a really decent SSD drive for around $70 or something now. Like a small
128 gigs maybe. Yeah.
And the difference that makes in terms of speed, loading up samples. I mean, it would be absolutely stunning thing to use. A big criticism of like the kind of machine type thing is the fact that you have to have a computer attached to it. So this all-in-one, it's beautiful. I can see it going down really well. Now, that's one thing. Another thing, are you saying then when you power it up, it boots straight up into the proprietary software of the device? Is that the idea?
Well, I mean, it would have to. I can't imagine you switch your PC on and it says, "Please log in." Do you want to check your email?
So you don't have a desktop then?
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, because that would be terrible. And my main kind of when people ask me about iPad productivity, and the main problem I've got with my iPad is the fact that it does go online. Now I can press the button to make it put it into the aeroplane mode. But the fact is, you've got all those apps, and all that distraction is just only a mere click away. So, the internet is just a constant addiction and something that's just always there. And to have a device that maybe to have some of the functionality of being able to go online, but it not being immediately presented in front of you, I think would be quite an important thing, you know.
Yeah, I know. I would think so. I mean, there's all sorts of things that could, obviously, with network attachment, all those things, there's all sorts of other issues that could happen, particularly with a pattern-based instrument, which has kind of got a countdown to where stuff syncs up. You could imagine online collaboration, because, you know, they could have somebody running some beats somewhere else that, you know, that come on the bar change, because you've got, like, you know, 8 seconds before it actually sort of gonna actually kick in. So that might be interesting. I suppose.
But it did.
Sorry.
I was going to say I did spot that there was an Ethernet port on.
Yeah,
that
no, it does.
MPC.
It does have the version of Windows Embedded Industry 8.1 does support touchscreen, Ethernet ports, USB ports, and that's going to be available by the end of this year. Obviously, as they said, that's not the final version, but yeah.
It's also interesting to see that particular MPC. It looks like it's based on an MPC Renaissance, but it was in a different color scheme. It had like a new touch screen, but so there's obviously been a lot of development going on there in that particular product.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're right with that. I think the thing is also, I don't know if you remember, was it Windows ME or Windows CE, which was embeddable, and you could jettison entire modules of the OS that you didn't need. So you could, and that was their first attempt at embedded stuff. And in fact, many coders kind of say it was rocket, it was awesome. It's a shame it didn't go any further, because, you know, you could just optimize Windows. You could get rid of so many little bits of the OS that you didn't need, in much the same way you can create a custom Linux build. I'm guessing with this sort of technology that you're going to have to be able to do stuff like that. It's like, I don't need a touchscreen module, bang, get rid of that, so the footprint becomes smaller. I don't need network, bang, get rid of that. You know, so all of these things are going to be crucial to the adoption of this, I guess. I don't know, Dave, do you remember anything to do with Windows? Was it ME or CE? I can't remember. There was a version, wasn't there, which you could modularize?
I think it was CE.
CE.
No, and I don't remember very much about it at all, apart from seeing the odd machine at shows and stuff like that. But they always seem to be really underpowered, and I don't know, it didn't really do much for me.
But I'm guessing with this, you know, obviously that's got an embedded core. I mean, the size of computers that we're getting these days, it starts to throw out some interesting options.
I think this is a very different kettle of fish. Yeah. I've just signed an NDA with Microsoft, so there's not a lot I can really sort of talk about at the minute. Or I don't know what I can and can't say. But I think what's interesting is obviously they are looking at this market and as potential for the future.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go and grab PJ. He's gone all small. He's shrunk. PJ, this won't hurt a bit. You might even find it mildly enjoyable. I'm just going to enlarge you.
Okay. Look at that.
Yes, sorry, I use that gag every week now. I'm terribly sorry. I must stop it because it's just pure. It's just smutty. There's no
video Viagra out there.
Video Viagra. I'm liking it. Okay, right. Well, so I suppose really, I mean, it's a fairly major topic, this, but so and we've reached about halfway through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run VT. Well, that's the idea, anyway. Yes, folks, it's time for a message from our sponsors. This is iZotope. I want to let you know about RX3. This is the fastest, easiest way to repair and restore audio. It's perfectly suited for audio engineering and recording. It does a whole bunch of things. Remove or reduce reverb from vocals, instruments, and more using de-reverb. Clean up dialogue with the dialogue denauser. It's apparently the new audio standard for real-time dialogue treatment. Monitor your audio and loudness using Insight, the comprehensive metering suite, on your DAW or NLE. Turn flawed audio into pristine usable material. I mean, we all know all about it here. I mean, it's saved my bacon several times. Spectral repair, you can pinpoint problems faster than ever with Spectrogram and Spectral Analyzer. Easily finesse your sound with dedicated audio enhancement modules. Lots and lots of stuff in terms of workflow and multiple documents. Currently, RX is on sale until May the 1st at $249. That's $100 off for RX3 Standard Edition, and for $74 and $749, which is for the Advanced Edition, that's down from $11.99. So do check it out. And remember, folks, there's going to be a little competition later. I'm going to mention a specific phrase and tell you what you have to do in order to win one copy of RX3. So, so we've done that one. Rich, you've dropped this one. This was Waves Vitamin. Perhaps we'll leave that to later because I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at that. I don't think I got to send out. But let's try this one. This is Imitone, which I thought was Imtone, which I'll explain why I thought that was interesting later, because it may not or may not be.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robin.
I will stop you there, but that's basically, it's a Kickstarter product called Imitone. And we've seen some of these things before, but this seems to have captured the imagination of the people that are interested in it. I mean, basically, it's a sort of, he posts it as a sort of mind to melody, and I suppose that's fair enough. I mean, we've seen some of these things before on the iPhone. If I go to the Kickstarter webpage, he was hoping for 20 grand, and he's unfortunately he got himself 75 grand instead, which I don't know how that works, but basically the idea is this is an almost fully working plugin that basically takes real time pitch and turns it to MIDI, and it looks like it's kind of seems to have captured the Kickstarter audience fairly hugely. And I like the look of the interface. It's, you know what's going on. And I don't know if you heard there, that was the demo guy. I'm sorry, I didn't make a note of his name, who was singing his cello line. And there's another demo video he does where he does the Game of Thrones violin, so he tries it in production environment. So this is still not quite ready for prime time, but looks like a lot of people want to get it. Is this something, I mean, I know we've got pitch to MIDI and Ableton, we've got things, but the real-time nature of this seems like quite a fascinating thing. I mean, PJ, you're a composer, is this the sort of thing? I mean, you're obviously very fluent on the keyboard, so it might not be so apparent to you, but I guess you could take something and just sort of mumble or sing along. Would it be, could you use this as a creative tool, do you think?
Yeah, I think most definitely it could be used as a creative tool. How useful it would be to me would be dependent on how often I want to sit around and practice my singing chops. I think you'd have to maybe be. I'm certain there's probably some way to quantize pitch in the interface of the bespoke software. And if it's relatively simple to set something like that up and fairly immediate, and I could just plug it into my workflow pipeline, I think it would be an interesting way to generate ideas, at least to lay down some sketches. Like you mentioned before, we've seen things like this. I recall maybe 5-6 years ago, we covered a topic like this. And
I think it was the Microsoft thing. Was it the, I forget what it was. Yeah.
That's right.
I've forgotten what it's called now, but yeah, very thematic.
Yep. And that seemed like it was
Songsmith.
aimed maybe more as a general purpose. You've got an idea, sing it, and it converts, at the back end, an algorithm converts your idea into a melody for better.
Yeah, that had a cheesy backing track kind of algorithm with it as well. So it was, yeah.
Yeah, this seems like it could be at least an interesting brush in a palette of brushes to maybe accomplish something that you might not any other way. Certainly, my preferred method to sketch things out is to sit at a piano, do that, and then go to the keyboard and flesh it out. But as good as that process is for me, or as rewarding and immediate as it can be, I'm sure there would be times where something like this might be a more at least interesting way to try to get something out of.
Oh, I think we're losing some video there, but Rich, I guess a similar thing for you. I mean, for people who perhaps are working, day in, day out in the music industry, the sketching down of ideas is perhaps not always the most difficult thing, or translating stuff from one. I'm guessing, I don't know if you noticed in the demo, it wasn't just the pitch, it was the expression and the velocity seemed to be quite sensitive as well, which I liked the sound of.
Yes, which takes it sort of out of the sketching down ideas marketing paradigm and puts it into the idea of how it could be used more creatively. I think PJ was approaching this in his comments. And I thought it was very interesting, and I quite enjoyed his demo of it. And yes, it's not. Yes, we have no bananas. Yes, it's not perfect, and he knows that, and he tells you that. And then you go read their website, and they tell you that, and they tell you it's not perfect. But what was most revealing to me was that the video of the accordion player having it follow him, and accordions have, by their nature, as do well, just as an attacking device, has a softer attack to it. And you could hear the thing really lagging behind the accordion a lot.
Yeah, there's a video here. Yeah, that's right.
To the point where it would be distracting to me, I think, if I were singing and it was that far behind me. And I think they probably know that, and they're working to correct it. So the more immediate and real-time they can make this pitch conversion process, the more effective this tool will be. But right now, I don't think it's close enough.
Yeah, okay, well, that's fair enough. I know, Gaz, you look like you're chewing on that as well.
Well, I think, we've seen this in various iOS apps, including Thumb Jam springs to mind straight away.
That was good, but latent, wasn't it?
No. Oh. Not latent. No. It's very, very quick. And if you set up a what's it called? The
network MIDI, right? You take the MIDI out.
Yeah,
we did a demo, didn't we?
When you create an ad hoc network, and you get your kind of iPhone or iPad in your ad hoc network to your computer, you can get incredibly fast response, like milliseconds. Now, so and that works really well. And you hold your phone and you can just sing into it or whatever. Or if you've got a wired headset attached to it, and you can have the phone in your pocket, you're essentially wireless, and you can walk around your studio. You're not having to do it in front of your laptop's microphone, and you've got like a wireless version. Now, the reason why I mention this is I've got this technology. I've had it for a few years. Initially, I was excited about it. How much have I actually used it? Hardly anything. And I think the reason for that is that, as fun as it is, it isn't quite as useful as, well, I mean, this is for me personally, but it's not quite as useful in practice as I thought it was going to be. And I will just resort to going to the computer or to the 16 pads or whatever it is for ideas. Okay, I mean, this is going to be a personal opinion, but I don't know. I think possibly you feel even self-conscious doing it, and even self-conscious
as long as nobody around.
But even on your own, it just
Is it like making a war face?
A little bit, yeah. And certainly, if people are in earshot, it's not particularly comfortable to do. But it's interesting when you use those pitch quantizing scales and stuff, and you can do some pretty kind of fun things. But so I saw that. I was a little bit, I was a bit ho-hum, but I think the interface is lovely. And I suppose I haven't seen anyone do such a nice kind of easy to use piece of software doing that. So
maybe that's the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know, Dave. It reminded me a bit of Songs in the Key of Life, the cover. One of those Stevie Wonders one with the sort of rainbowy thing. I'm thinking something like this would be good if you had MIDI note velocity and filter, so you could do that and control analog synthesis and open and articulate. That would be that might be quite interesting. Or is it just me?
No, but I think what you'll probably see is things like this hook up with stuff like Leap Motion. And then you're going to get gesture and voice controlled stuff. I mean, for me, I don't know. It doesn't. I was looking at the other one that we looked at, which was that digital ear thing. And for me, where this wins is interface. It's beautiful and simple. It looks. It's just easy to use. Whereas that digital ear one that we talked about years ago, you had to set a harmonics threshold, and there was all sorts of stuff.
Oh lordy! So
there's the trick. The trick is just making it as simple to use as possible. But I wonder how it would deal with things like glissandos. I was listening quite intently to that. and I didn't really hear too much.
I guess the problem is with all of that stuff is, you know, you've got to set it so that it doesn't, if you're off the mark, it doesn't kind of let you down. But if you want to kind of slide somewhere else, it's got to pick it up fast enough to capture your intent, which is going to be always something.
And of course, the other major problem is some of us have got a vocal range of about 4 semitones.
Yeah, there's that.
I mean, if you were Sade, for example, trying to use it, you're a bit screwed, aren't you?
Rappers, perhaps. Yeah. Although there was so interesting in the I'll see if I can get it going actually. 'Cause in the in the accordion one, let's play this. It picks up his voice and he's laughing, and it tracks it as well. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Yeah, you can hear delay there. Then he starts laughing. Go on then. Yeah, that was the most interesting part of that. Was it trying to pitch us? Oh, hold on. It doesn't work like that, does it? I'm gonna. There we go. But I mean, in terms of accuracy, that was pretty. Yeah, but there's a bunch of delay there. But again, you know, these things obviously need to be optimized. But it's like pitch to MIDI. There's going to be delay, isn't there? You know, even if you've got a MIDI bass, you've got, as you found, Gaz. You know, you've got to you up the octave and then drop the, you know, and post process, and then you get the notes.
Well, it's only really in the bottom octave on a bass guitar, so you're not going to be singing down there, I don't think. So I think the vocal range, I think, is going to be pretty quick to track. I would have thought maybe the lowest notes possibly, but
right. Maybe it's not just that then. Okay, and now, actually, I think this is probably a good time. I think I will now present the iZotope competition. Now, I'm going to say this phrase. The phrase is spectral repair. So what you actually have to do to win your copy, you've got to hashtag spectral repair. This is a Twitter only competition for the time being. Hashtag spectral repair and at Sonic Nick and at iZotope Inc. And it will show up in my stream of stuff on Twitter. And the first person that I see in terms of timestamp to do both of all of those things will qualify to win. So that's it. Very simple. Good luck, everybody. Right. There was the, well, I mean, more. I think I'd like to go to the drum machine actually, just purely because I love the sound of this thing. This is Dr. Böhm digital drums, and funnily enough, this is I've got a set of samples from this which I use all the time. It's not as loud as I thought it was going to be. Oh. This is billed as the German Linn Drum, and I've tried to find everywhere online a price. I don't know how many they made, but there certainly aren't enough to ever have been on eBay. I absolutely want one, even though I don't like drum machines very much. I just love the look of that thing. It's got a cross between a typewriter and some kind of computer interface from the 1970s, which I suppose is exactly what it is. But it got me thinking, really, more. It's less about this particular drum machine, but more about, you know, drum machines I have loved. You can't mention the 808, I'm afraid, because everybody says, and the 808's had plenty of love. So I'm looking for something a little more obscure. But Dave, are you familiar with the Dr. Böhm? It sounds like one of those shops that they have in Frankfurt.
Yeah,
Dr.
Especially because there is an umlaut, isn't there? So it's Dr. Böhm.
Dr. Böhm.
Like Dr. Müller's.
Yeah.
There you go.
Dr. Müller's Emporium.
That. Yes. No, I've had samples from it. No, I have no direct experience of it. It looks quite funky.
There is a good set of samples from it. It's that XL Drums thing that you used to get on Akai, which I had years and years ago, and it's just got it's got every single drum machine, and that one and the Kawai R50 or R100, both of those two machines have really, really good sample sets for that sort of thing, if you're interested, and especially when you mess them up. all over some of my finer works, some might say, or maybe not so finer works. Rich, I mean, you got into synclavia pretty early, didn't you? So did the Linn Drum kind of come across your board? Were you there prodding away?
The Linn Drum and the Memory Moog were my best friends in 1983, along with my Dr. Click.
That's great company you keep there.
Yeah, it was cool. And actually, we had, dare I say it, 2 Linn Drums.
Woo!
Running simultaneously with different chipsets.
Get you. Yeah, because you could prom them, couldn't you? And I think the Dr. Böhm was a EEPROM based thing, but I don't know whether there was an EEPROM blower for that as well. You could do the same for, there was a sequential circuits drum tracks which you could blow proms for as well. Any particular favourite drum machine that would that qualify, or are you glad those days are gone, or do you still reach for certain drum machine samples that you're actually using there, Rich? So.
I've done all of the above, but I don't tend to operate drum machines very often these days unless it's machine. But I have used Linn samples actually not that long ago on occasion where they're called for. In this case, it was to duplicate something that had been done years ago, and I was asked to break it out, and I used the same sounds that had been printed, knowing that they may later subsequently be replaced. But I have had cause to use old Linn sounds, old Roland sounds. People use these things all the time. Sometimes they don't even know what they are, but yes.
Absolutely.
And I was hip in DMX world as well, Oberheim's whole system. And yes, I was along for the ride for all of this and was there at its, birth. So that's why my initial view of this thing came as a topic with practically no information. And I was shocked just now to discover that this is actually a current product.
No,
I thought this was some sort of nostalgia piece that we found a guy who had one and listened to that. Doesn't it sound great?
Are you sure about that? I couldn't find any information about it either.
It's old.
I think it is old.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I have no information about it. It's hard for me to.
I think I found the same thing. I couldn't find any information about what you could pay it for it secondhand. There were a couple of different models from Dr. Böhm, and they were from around, I guess, the mid to late 80s. I don't know if they still. Good. I don't know if they do still exist as.
So you mean they're not Windows based?
No. that would be using a sledgehammer to crack for attack, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Oh, you mean as opposed to what they're doing over there? Never mind.
Well, yes, both, but still, great drum machines I've loved. PJ, I'm sure you're a drum machine user or have been in the past. Your dirty secret.
Oh yeah, my love of drum machines goes back to the very first one which I owned was the Roland TR-505. And then beyond that would be the Alesis HR-16, and then several since then. Currently, like Rich mentioned, I use mostly for beat creation, amongst other things, Machine. And my favorite collection of drum samples is the stuff made by Hugo Tichborne, Gold Baby. He goes under the name of Gold Baby, and he has done a impeccable job of archiving most drum machines that have existed at one time or another on the planet. So I highly recommend his work. It's eminently reasonably priced, and use it all the time when I need drum machine sounds. Another great collection is Ian Boddy did a collection maybe 5-6 years ago of drum sounds made purely from modular synthesizers, and those are really great if you want something obscure.
Nice.
Yeah, so drum machines are fantastic. I almost pulled the trigger on buying a Tempest, but then thought it's a bit out of the price range for how often I would probably use it. But I do have, sitting on my dresser at home, a Roland MC909, which occasionally I pull out and use, and I love that. I love that machine.
Is that one of the things that you just know inside out as well?
I do.
Yeah, I think that really helps as well. That muscle memory can help you create faster, can't it, I guess?
It does, and like we brought up before with the Akai and other systems of that ilk, it's self-contained. You know exactly what it can do. And the great thing about the 909, like the Akai, you can load in your own samples as well as what's on board, which is not bad, in terms of Roland's offerings. Their sample set on board is decent for sketching things out, and of course it has MIDI both ways and drag and drop via USB, even though it's very, very early days for that technology, as that machine is circa 2001 or 2002. But it's a great machine that I picked up not too long ago, 2 years ago, on eBay, because I was regretting having sold my MC505, and the 909 is just a different beast entirely, which adds an entirely new dimension to that interface, and I love that way of working. So when I have the opportunity to do so, I gleefully engage.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Gaz, what about you? I mean, you're very much sort of live kind of geezer, but you must be, you're a pattern guy as well, because I know you, you know, obviously used to use MC stuff as well, didn't you?
I had a TR-606.
Right.
Yeah. Which I loved, and you know, I've talked about that before. Miss, but yeah, I mean, you know, like Rich and PJ, the Machine tends to be the thing that I use now. And in fact, Machine 2 has got these drum synthesizers, which sound fantastic. They sound fantastic, and they give you just such a wide array of sounds that takes some beating. But recent other stuff using the analog keys, the drum sounds on that sound brilliant. And my current favorite is the Tokyo module in Korg's Gadget on the iPad. I love it. I think it sounds fantastic, and that's got loads of potential. It's so easy to use, and it's very, very, very nice sounding. But old gear, actually, since PJ just said about the 909, I'm just looking at one up on my computer screen here and thinking, cool. Yeah, I remember when it came out, and I just thought, wow. But now they're kind of pretty affordable, and it does look pretty groovy. What sample? How much sample space is in them?
In the one that I have, it's 256 megabytes.
Okay, that's a lot of drum sounds.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Rich was giving some love to the Alesis HR16s as well, because there was the A and the B, wasn't there? And they were the first kind of affordable digital, because they had that sound that the sort of piccolo snare that everybody was using at the time. I know, Dave, did you find that you were being replaced by HR16s back in the day when you were drumming?
No, but I did used to play along with a drumulator. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah,
which was the EMU thing. Do you want to? I've got a good story about synclavs and drum samples, if you want.
Okay.
Which is it kind of relates to Rich Hilton. So when I was used to do stuff at Martin Russian's place here, and of course he was like Mr. Tech, had the synclav, had the Fairlight as a doorstop after he bought the synclav. I think he'd leased it, and they had about 500 drum sounds on the synclav. So whenever a band came in, it was like, and you know what it was like in the 80s. It was just like, so next drum sound. Next one, and after you'd done like 20, you'd just forgotten what the first ones were. But he had sampled the Bowie Let's Dance snare.
Everybody
which was
did.
fairly legendary, and he'd used it on a load of records. And that was the kind of key one. That was the one he really loved. So you'd always get, after the band had kind of got really bored of listening to snare sounds for half a day at probably a cost of 800 quid. The Crawley Bumlick engineer would always put his head round the corner and go, Martin, what about the Bowie snare? And of course the band would go, oh, Bowie? Oh, let's hear that. And of course you scroll straight through, go, yeah, we'll have that. So one day, I think it was The Cure, I'll probably get into trouble for this, but The Cure were there, and they were going through all the drum samples and stuff. The same thing, exactly the same process happened, you know, lost interest. What about the Bowie snare? Oh, good idea, Bowie snare, bang. Bowie snare, oh yeah, we'll have that. Well, the engineer at the time really hated the whole synclav scene and wanted real drums. So basically he called one of the Cure people to one side and said, why do you have that snare? You know, everybody has that snare. He makes everyone have it, which of course immediately is like, oh, we don't want that snare. So Matey Boy from the Cure goes straight to Martin Rushent and says, look, the engineer, who will remain nameless, just said that, you know, like everybody uses that snare. So then Q, another half day, or, you know, the whole of the afternoon and early evening was then spent trying to find another snare. We go to the pub that night, and Martin Rushent decides then to sack said engineer for interfering with the process, because frankly the band didn't need to know that everybody else had that snare. By which time he'd run up about 1,200 quid on the day rate. It was just brilliant. And I think the engineer got on so well with it was Robert Smith from The Cure, that Smith said, well, actually, if he's sacked, we'll probably go somewhere else. So he's immediately reinstated on double money.
Nice. All down to the snare. That's a great story, Dave. Nice one. You must have been there, Rich, auditioning bass drums. I mean, that's what it was for, wasn't it, at the time, for many people anyway, that kind of technology.
But as Dave originally pointed out, by the time you've hit snare drum 20, you don't remember the first 5. But the best part of the story is I too once got an engineer rehired at a increased salary as a client. They were going to fire our assistant, and we went to them and said, not only aren't you going to fire him, but you're going to give him a raise.
Hey, excellent. Why was he going to be fired if that's not too delicate?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I don't think it had anything to do with us, and we didn't care. He had been with us for months in this studio. He had our complete thing down, and we did not want to start from zero with a new guy at that point in the process.
No, sure.
And he wasn't getting paid enough.
Excellent. Well, maybe he was going to leave.
And the studio certainly was. No, he wasn't going anywhere. He was having a good time. So we actually got him rehired at a raise, at an increased salary.
Nobody ever did that for me. I did rehired at half the rate, maybe, but yes. Well, excellent. Thank you for those tales of drum samples and drums. That was the that one. BT getting there. Dr. Böhm. What do we want next? There's gosh, it's 5 o'clock already. VCS emulations or Waves Vitamin or BT getting animated about Leap Motion, because Leap Motion has actually not has not actually kind of quite ever taken off, and there's some interesting aspects to this. Or we could just call it a day. I don't know. Actually, PJ, have you explored the Leap Motion at all? Is that something that's been on your radar?
Yeah, I looked at the link that you sent, and I dug a little deeper. Maybe not deeply enough. What I don't understand about Leap Motion exactly is what it is specifically that BT's doing with it, or that he intends other musicians to do with it. I mean, I understand the general concept of what it is, and it seems to be sold as an all-purpose controller for games, for visual animation manipulation, visual sculpting and sketching, and then the music applications. And there seem to be some bespoke apps that are being sold to run alongside it, so that you're able to use it in these regards.
That's exactly it. That's what he's done. He's created an app called MUSE for that very purpose.
Okay, so is it the MUSE app that he's using in the demonstration, where he seems to be using the gestural control to I don't know, is it to launch sound clips in Ableton Live, or is he actually making music real time? Because the stuff that he was generating, at least the backing track on the video that you sent, sounded like the kind of thing that he's doing recently in general. So that's why I'm wondering if he's just triggering, pre-composed chunks of music, or is he literally playing that controller as an instrument?
That's a good question. I actually have a Leap Motion.
Yeah, the MUSE software itself is available now, $7.99. But yeah, you can have in the boxes that go across the screen that you can kind of interact with.
Exhibit
they can
A.
be. There we go. So they can be chords. They can be. You can trigger drones. Essentially, each of those boxes can have, or circles, can have a bunch of different parameters on them, and and you can interact. You can press them in. You can do different things, and it seems quite good. I've got the Leap Motion here.
Are these seed sound generated sounds then, or are they pre-composed samples, or do you have any control over what these sounds are and the parameters of these sounds in general before you start controlling them with the leap motion, or are they fixed, a fixed sound set that you're relegated to operating within?
I think actually haven't really gone too deep with it. There's a bunch of stuff that comes with it. I'm not sure if it does output it. I think you might be stuck with it actually.
Well, there are other. I mean, there's the Gecko thing which you can use to control several sorts of controllers. So you get that aspect, that's the Böhm app that does allow you to interact with MIDI devices, generally speaking.
Yeah, but that doesn't trigger notes. Gecko doesn't trigger notes at all. Gecko is just
control, isn't it?
Controllers, yeah. Whereas this is actually, triggering notes, triggering, arpeggios, triggering sequences, etc., and and you can kind of interact with it. One thing I have to say about the Leap Motion though is that you do need a pretty powerful machine to run it. I've noticed that I've got an i5 here and I've got an i7 machines, and there is a massive difference. And also, the big thing I've noticed is the Leap Motion is a bandwidth hog. You won't have as few things on your USB bus. Well, you won't have nothing on a USB bus if you can, except the Leap Motion. There is an enormous difference between the sensitivity. As soon as you start having a few other USB things on the same USB bus, the kind of interaction does get significantly reduced.
Yeah, all of these. I can't help but think some of these things are kind of problems looking for solutions, looking for a problem. In many ways.
Can I ask one more question? So, given all of that, I guess really what I'm trying to get down to is with this MUSE software and the Leap Motion, are you able to create original sounding music, or is most of what you create going to sound like it's in the same wheelhouse as everybody else that owns a Leap Motion in the MUSE software, given the constraints?
Let's have a look.
Yeah, good point.
However, choose from 3 sound sets, each with unique chords, drones, and drums. So yeah, that looks like it is I guess the thing is, record and save your all options. What you really want is to be able to, because the in the video, which we haven't played, but you can always check it out. I think the composer that BT's working with, Boulanger, I think his name was saying, look, it's great because I can put all of my phrasing and stuff in here and then move it around. So I guess if you're creating the sound set, then that makes a lot of sense. And PJ, that might work, certainly from a composition point of view, because quite often, you create your palette of sounds for a movie or a project, and you could maybe gesturally interpret those to picture with just a completely different set of parameters. That might be very interesting.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing if that was possible. Yeah, that's exciting to me. Moving in that direction. But if really all you have is kind of a glorified, sandbox that's relatively limited in terms of its sound palette and what you're able to do with it with the control device, then it seems to me like it might be a bit of a waste of time in terms of trying to generate original sounding music or something that you could point to that and say, I composed that, or I created the palette, or this is unique to me, rather than it sort of being an extension of the environment that is being thrust on you in terms of the Leap Motion.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I contacted Geert Bevin, the creator of Gecko, to query why you couldn't send out MIDI note information, because I wanted to create a I wanted to create like an Uber theremin that had multiple, over MIDI, and to sort of operate something like Omnisphere or something similar, and have lots and lots of parameter controls. I thought that sounded extremely exciting, but he said he wrote back to me to say that he said it's on. I'm just quoting him now. It's on purpose that Gecko doesn't send out MIDI notes, since MIDI really doesn't suit itself for theremin-like playing. You have distinct notes from which there are pitch bend amounts that don't have fixed note distances. So this requires the user to both calibrate on sending and the receiving end just to make the distance between the notes bend correctly. He said there's another problem after that in note re-triggering of most software synths. As soon as you switch to another note, the beginning of the envelopes play, meaning that you have to start from one note and work with large pitch bend distances, reducing the resolution a lot. Right. And he's saying finally those last pitch bend distances are not the same on all synths, some accept 12 semitones, others 24, blah blah blah. So he says, in short, it's a real mess coming from MIDI. But he is saying, though, that there is some development within the Leap Motion that's going to improve. What's he saying? They're working on supporting finger touches, and he thinks that once that's supported, then. Yeah,
I think the thing, because I reviewed the Leap Motion and I enjoyed it. It was great for sort of filtery stuff, but I couldn't help but think, if you're performing, it'd be great to be able to come in, bang, and sort of trigger a chord over here and one over here, so you could actually hit musical sort of points, and they might be, whether they're percussive notes or just things that float in and out. But that would, so rather than affecting the pitch, you could just kind of go right here. I want that note to be triggered out to whatever it is, and that could be a stack of notes or whatever it may be. Because you can do that with the Keith McMillan stuff. You can hit a pad and you can stack. I think on the soft step, you could stack up to 6 note events, so you can play, kind of hit trigger chords and what have you. And that sort of thing is quite useful in terms of performance. Obviously, if you're programming it out for a specific use where it has to play specific notes, not so much perhaps in the improvisational kind of area. I don't know. Dave, are you got fancy a Leap Motion? You wave your hands in the air and make stuff happen, or does that?
I don't know. I don't know. You always look like a tit, in my opinion. I think that's the problem I deal with. I find it hard enough, standing behind a keyboard.
Not making a synth face.
Plonking away, yeah, and kind of gurning away, and then all of a sudden you're doing this, and all you're doing is kind of going bing, plonk, bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, it's a bit Jean-Michel Jarre laser harp, I suppose, isn't it? That's the problem you've got with anything like that.
I recommend learning to play an instrument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Rich is with you there. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting actually, because the whole gesture and touch thing. But it seems there are lots and lots of people looking for something else, another way to interact with musical instruments and happenings. So there is a desire for it. There's enough of us who want it to happen, but we just don't seem to be able to find the right thing. I mean, obviously there's the Imogen Heap gloves, which we were going to have as a topic, but that's probably not going to be much time today. But again, that's that sort of, it's all a bit. It's like, I don't know if you ever see. There's a great cartoon. It's a Tom and Jerry one where you've got the megalomaniac conductor, and he's kind of trying to kind of eke all this music out. And it's it just sort of reminds me of that a bit. I don't know.
I'd like to see somebody do something really brilliant with it. That's what I'd love to see.
Right, me too.
And then I'll probably go, oh, that's cool. Oh, maybe I could do that. But it's kind of. I've noticed this recently. Everyone's kind of telling you about stuff. No one actually shows you how brilliant something can be. Everyone tells you, oh, it's going to be awesome and it's going to be this. And actually, most of it seems to be kind of based on existing technology that was never brilliant in the first place. So, I don't know, maybe I've just got my cynical head on today, but I'd like to see somebody do something great.
Yes, I think that's it. I think you're right.
I agree. I agree totally.
Yeah. In that video earlier on the Kickstarter with the vocal thing, the girl who's doing the demonstration at the beginning, I was just thinking, it's a really rubbish piece of music. It's a really rubbish, uninspiring piece of music. And you could just play one finger melody, the simplest tune that anyone could figure out. I'm thinking, come on, let's see some virtuosos. Let's be blown away by this, not just think, wow. It's a backward step.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think also it says that thing, you don't need to have any musical ability. It's like, well, actually, screw that. I think you should, for it to have any validity, unless you're just going to be a lucky monkey just typing until something good comes out. I think it's nice to consider that that does have some validity somewhere along the line. But yeah, I think we seem to have lost PJ. I'm going to try and get him back for the goodbye.
Can I say something here,
yes,
Nick, about this topic? First of all, I agree wholeheartedly with Dave's assessment that I'm really looking forward to seeing people do interesting things with, as Gaz points out, some degree of virtuosity with these kinds of motion control. That said, I feel like with each advance in this direction of technology towards controllerism, we're getting further and further away from the vibration itself. And one of the glorious things about singing or playing the guitar or playing an instrument like a horn is that you are either touching or creating the vibration. And with each of these things, you're getting farther and farther away from the vibration. You're not even touching the vibration at that point. And that, to me, is significant because on a personal level, that's what interests me, is my relationship with that vibration.
Oh, I think that's fair enough.
It's such a brilliant quote, actually. I've dined out. You said something ages ago, Rich, about, I think I was saying, like, I think it was like what inspired us when we were really young, and there was like this school singing competition thing where loads of schools got together. And I remember just being kind of profoundly moved by it. And then when you said, I think we discussed it years ago, and you said it's to do with people breathing in unison. And actually, I've quoted that so many times, and everybody else suddenly goes, yes, because it's all about the vibration. And when you get those kind of sympathetic resonances or breathing, it moves on to another level. And that's what inspires me.
So an instrument that moves air, or something that is a shared airspace, seems to... Okay, well, I think...
Well, at that point, the speaker becomes your instrument, because it's moving the air. It is creating the vibration.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a valid point. But it does rather... I suppose it's just where the air is moved. I mean, as with lots of touch devices and what have you, there's a way of... creating, as me and Gaz looked at, Gaz looked at Cool Gadget, and that is a really interesting and enjoyable creative environment to work within a very closed and essentially, what is a sort of inanimate environment, because it's just a touchscreen, but yeah, there are ways of implying that vibe in that world somehow. Well,
yeah, and as Dave says, I'm waiting to be blown away by somebody on one of these systems, because I think we will be.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. Wow, well, I think that probably brings us kind of pretty neatly to the end of proceedings today. I want to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us. Thanks for those in the chat room. Thanks. We're at got a good, decent amount of people in the chat room, and I can see the technology's held up, so fantastic. So I want to say thank you to all of my guests. We'll start with PJ, because we just lost him briefly there with some sort of Wi-Fi issue. But PJ, it's been a real treat to have you aboard. It's great to see you again, and I do hope we can count on your presence at some point again in the not too distant future.
Oh, most definitely, Nick. Thanks so much for having me. It's this is something that I've missed terribly. I can't believe that over an hour has just flown by. This kind of nerdy, techie conversation is something that I don't get to engage in very often, and with such illustrious company. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, PJ. Great to have you. If you want to see what PJ's up to, Trace Media Group. There you go. There's a URL down there. I hope I got the right one there. You keep changing your website, so I have to sort of track you down.
PJ Tracy Music will get you there as well.
All right. Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
It all points to the same direction. But anyway, thank you very much, PJ. Great to have you aboard, and congratulations on your recent salubrious publicity. That's great. Thank you very much. And we'll also go Rich Hilton over there, Mr. Non-hirsute Hilton, haircut Hilton, as we say. You're looking very dapper, and I'm sure now I appreciate you coming in, because I'm sure the time difference is kind of screwing with your working day. So I appreciate you taking the time. No, are we back in the same pocket, because we've changed hours now as well, so it's not so bad. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
It's all good.
Thank you very much, Rich. Much appreciated. As ever.
Thank you, guys. It's always great, and welcome back, PJ. We love having you, man.
Yeah, really good to see you.
Thanks, Rich.
And Dave Spears there also in his synth cave.
With my synth t-shirt on.
No, you can never have
beauty.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
We're gonna start doing some merchandising. I think we're gonna try and see if there's a way that we can just make a shop, so we can upload some logos and people can buy t-shirts.
Yeah.
And what have you, just so that they can fly the flag. That's what we're hoping to do. Is just on the list.
Sonic
of things.
State Underpants, Nick.
You think?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there are many merchandising sort of places that do drop, that do that offer pants. But if somebody has a suggestion, I'd be quite happy. I could just see the roundel, maybe front or back. What do you think?
Yeah, on the back.
Or maybe brassieres with kind of Anyway, guys, thank you as ever for joining us too. Appreciate everybody being here, and thanks again.
There's a new Sonic Touch out as well, isn't there?
Absolutely, yes, there is a Sonic Touch out. The Sonic Touch was out yesterday, or was it Monday? Gosh, I can't remember.
Yesterday, I think.
Yes, that's right. Featuring Tim Webb from Discord. He came and joined us over the wires, much in the way that we communicate here. So you want to check that out. That's got Final Touch and a bit of audio bus action as well. So, and what's the other thing? Audio Share from Climatica. So if you want to check that out, please do. And remember, subscribe. I can't say it enough times. I'm on a subscription because what I want is one of those YouTube plaques that you get when you reach 100,000 subscribers. I want that on the wall over here to go with all of my fake silver discs, which I'm going to start collecting as well, pretending that they're mine. But the YouTube one would be great. But anyway, so you can subscribe on YouTube. The subscription thing is up. Is it up there? It's up there or up there, and on Sonic I've put the button on there, so please do subscribe if you haven't, because we not only do Sonic Touch, we've got lots of other content as well, and Sonic Talk. That's right, Rich, like that. That's it. Something like, yeah, that looks actually, no, that's approaching the close the sign for the deaf language for BS, which I think is that. So yeah, that's not obviously what we mean, but anyway, yes, please do. And once again, thank you very much to our show sponsors. We have actually got a winner. The first person to tweet in was Native VS at precisely, let me see, I can probably tell you there, 4:43 p.m. And closely followed by I Am the Mr. Big Man. But Native VS got it, so I'll be contacting you, and you will have won your copy of iZotope RX3. So once again, thanks very much. Right, and I'm going to let me see. I think I've got PJ's thing here. I wonder if I can play out with your tune. Would that be acceptable? From Time Magazine. This is the it's 1970s ski Sunday kind of idea, wasn't it?
Yeah,
was that the 1970s era sports game?
Yeah, it was a 1970s era sports racing game based on the Winter Olympics, and slightly campy. And my take on it was sort of funky, mixing up different references like the Electric Company theme song, the game show themes from the 1970s, mixed with a little bit of Funkadelic and James Brown.
Nice. Let's see. I'm going to switch to the your page on on Time Magazine right there, and let's see if I press play. Turn it. Yeah, we can turn that up. I can get that even louder. Thank you very much. It seems to get louder when I talk, which is not what I anticipated. Anyway, thank you very much. Just one sec.